Part 3. Expansion of Consciousness to the Environment.
So far, we've explored the expansion of consciousness to encompass not only humanity, but also the animals we share this world with. However, our connection to life doesn't end with other living beings. Humans and animals do not live in isolation. We exist within a broader environment that sustains and nurtures life. This means that in our journey of expanding consciousness, we must also recognize the profound importance of the environment itself, the very systems of matter and energy that make our existence possible. At the core of our physical existence is the interaction between matter and energy, the two all-encompassing factors present in the universe. Our physical bodies are not static. They are dynamic systems, constantly interacting with the environment around us. The cells in our body are continually changing, dying, and renewing through the absorption of nutrients and the shedding of waste. This flow of matter and energy reflects the interdependence between our internal systems and the external world. The food we consume, the air we breathe, and the water we drink all come from the environment. In fact, we are the environment inextricably linked to the earth, the air, the rivers, and the oceans. By expanding our consciousness to recognize this, we can see that the destruction of the environment is not separate from us. It is the destruction of ourselves. The depletion of natural resources, pollution of air and water, and destruction of ecosystems all directly impact the very fabric of our being. Every tree that falls, every animal that disappears, every river that runs dry, these events are not just external tragedies, they are internal losses, because they affect the interconnected systems of life that we depend on.
Beings of Earth.
Our body is composed of the same matter that makes up the environment around us. Every bite of food, every sip of water, and every breath of air comes from nature, whether from plants, fruits, vegetables, or animals, all of which rely on the environment for sustenance. The boundary of our skin gives the illusion of separation, but in reality, there is an ongoing exchange between our bodies and the environment. We absorb nutrients from food, water, and air, and as a byproduct, we excrete waste in the form of urine, feces, and exhaled carbon dioxide. The environment continually cycles through our bodies, blessing us with life-giving resources, while we, in turn, return bodily processes that re-enter the ecosystem. Without this constant flow of external nutrients and water, our bodies would cease to function. We are not independent beings, but rather extensions of the earth itself, intricately linked to its cycles. The idea that our physical body is simply an extension of the planet's matter and energy is not just poetic, it's scientific reality. This understanding highlights that the earth is not just separate from us, it is a part of us. Many cultures refer to the planet as Mother Earth, acknowledging the life-giving relationship we share with her. Through her body, our body is sustained, and in this way, our well-being and hers are intertwined. To pollute the earth, therefore, is to poison ourselves. When we contaminate the air, the water, or the soil, we are introducing toxins into the very systems that embody us. Over time, these pollutants seep back into our bodies through the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. What we give out, whether positive or negative, inevitably comes back to us, cycling through the interconnected web of life. By recognizing this deep connection, we are called to protect and preserve the earth, not just as stewards of nature, but as caretakers of our own physical existence. To live in harmony with the planet is to honor the flow of matter and energy that nurtures all life, ensuring that we nourish both Mother Earth and ourselves in the process.
Beings of Light.
All motion in our body, from the flexing of a muscle to the beating of the heart, is powered by ATP, adenosine triphosphate. The energy that drives us at every level can ultimately be traced back to the sun. This connection is profound, as ATP is derived from glucose that was originally produced by plants through the process of photosynthesis, where they capture sunlight and convert it into usable energy. In essence, the earth gives us our physical body, but it is the sun that provides the energy needed to set that body into motion. Every heartbeat, every breath, Every movement of a limb is driven by the energy stored in ATP molecules, which themselves carry the essence of sunlight. When we consume animals, they are simply intermediaries, passing on the energy they have acquired from eating plants or other animals, all of which leads back to the original source, the sun. Our muscles, heart, lungs, and even facial expressions are fueled by this energy, creating a seamless flow from the cosmic to the cellular level. The relationship between humans and the sun is even more apparent when we consider how solar energy drives not just our bodies, but also the natural forces we harness for technology. Sunlight creates the wind, powers the ocean currents, and heats the earth, providing the energy we capture with solar panels, wind farms, and hydroelectric turbines. Even the fossil fuels we depend on today, coal, gas, and oil, are ancient reserves of stored sunlight derived from prehistoric living beings whose bodies were fossilized over millions of years. In many ways, we have built our modern world by tapping into the hidden energy of long-extinct plants and animals, releasing their stored sunlight to fuel our lives. From one perspective, we are beings of earth and light. Our bodies are born of the earth, composed of the same elements that make up the soil, rocks, and water, but our motion, the very act of being alive, comes from the sun. Even in the darkness of night, when sunlight seems absent, our bodies are still powered by the energy stored in food and fuel, which itself is nothing more than transformed light. We are quite literally living embodiments of earth and sunlight, two forces intertwined to animate our existence.
The nature of plants.
However, we are not the only beings of light. Plants, in their simplicity and direct connection to sunlight, embody this relationship with matter and energy in an even more profound way. They live and die according to the sun's rhythms, capturing its rays to create life-giving energy through photosynthesis. Through this process, they transform sunlight into chemical energy, which forms the foundation of all life on Earth. In many ways, plants act as a bridge between matter and light, sustaining not just themselves, but also all other living beings, including us. On the surface, it might seem that plants and animals have little in common. We easily recognize the life and consciousness in animals because they react visibly to the world. They respond to danger, struggle to survive, and often display behaviors that show their awareness of their environment. Plants, however, appear so stoic, unmoving, unresponsive, and seemingly unbothered. They don't cry out when cut or fight back when burned. To many, they might appear dumb, as if they have no capacity for life beyond mere existence. But this perspective is superficial, a misunderstanding based on human bias toward visible reactions. The truth about plants is far more complex. Do trees truly not respond to harm or injury? If that were the case, they would have little chance of survival, and yet they have thrived for hundreds of millions of years. Just because they don't scream or flinch doesn't mean they lack the capacity to sense harm or act in their own defense. Far from being passive, plants have developed complex systems for self-preservation and adaptation. They sense light, temperature, gravity, and even chemical signals from other plants and animals. When faced with a hostile environment, plants may modify their physiology to ensure survival. Their responses are slower and more subtle than those of animals, but no less intelligent in their design. In the intricate and interconnected web of life, plants form the foundation of survival, not just for themselves, but for all living beings. They are the primary producers, converting sunlight into the food and oxygen that sustain all other organisms on Earth. The illusion that plants are unfeeling or unaware is just that, an illusion. They may not have nervous systems like animals, but their intentionality for life is undeniable. Their will to survive is expressed in ways we are only beginning to fully understand, but it is just as present as in any animal struggling to live. Plants, like animals, deserve our respect and recognition as sentient participants in the cycle of life. They are as much a part of the great dance of matter and energy as we are, sharing the same origin in the sun's light. To see them as less is to misunderstand their role in the ecology of existence and the truth of life.
Features we share.
To understand plants more deeply, let's start by examining their physical structure, as it forms the foundation for everything else. Both plants and animals share many biological similarities at the cellular level. They both have DNA composed of the same basic elements: nucleotides, phosphate groups, and nitrogenous bases. This shared genetic architecture is remarkable because it highlights how life on Earth, whether plant or animal, is built on the same foundational blueprints. Both plants and animals are multicellular organisms composed of eukaryotic cells, which are characterized by having a well-defined nucleus and specialized organelles such as mitochondria, responsible for energy production, ribosomes, protein synthesis, the endoplasmic reticulum, protein and lipid production, and the Golgi apparatus, modifying and packaging proteins. At this basic cellular level, we can begin to see differences that drive the unique characteristics of plant and animal life. Animal cells possess structures like centrioles, which play a crucial role in cell division, and lysosomes, which contain digestive enzymes to break down waste. They also rely on actin and myosin for movement, key proteins that allow for muscle contraction and physical mobility. Plant cells, on the other hand, have their own distinct features. They are surrounded by a cell wall made of cellulose, which provides rigid structural support and defines the shape of the plant. This wall is what gives plants their stability, allowing them to stand tall and withstand environmental pressures like wind or gravity. Additionally, plants have chloroplasts, which are the site of photosynthesis, enabling them to convert sunlight into energy, a capability animals do not have. Lastly, plant cells contain a central vacuole, which helps maintain the cell's turgor pressure, stores nutrients and waste products, and aids in cell growth by absorbing water and expanding. On a microscopic level, these differences result in distinct behaviors between plant and animal cells. Animal cells are characterized by their ability to perform rapid, dynamic processes. They are built for movement, quick responses to stimuli, and high metabolic activity to support mobility and active interactions with their environment. Plant cells, by contrast, function at a slower pace. Their processes are more regulated and geared toward gradual growth, structural stability, and the efficient production of energy through photosynthesis. Plants grow toward sunlight, slowly but deliberately, while animals can respond instantly to threats or opportunities. This deeper look at the cellular structure of plants and animals reveals a common ancestry rooted in the basic building blocks of life, yet diverging into distinct paths. Plants, in their slowness, exhibit a kind of patience in the way they interact with their environment. Their stillness is not an absence of life, but a different rhythm of life, one that is connected to the cycles of the earth and the sun in ways that are perhaps more subtle, but no less profound. In understanding these basic biological differences, we begin to appreciate the unique roles both plants and animals play in the larger web of life, and why plants, just like animals, deserve recognition as sentient beings participating in the ongoing cycle of matter and energy.
Sharing a common ancestor.
It might be surprising to realize the similarities that animals and plants share in their physical forms. However, it becomes clearer when we recognize that plants and animals evolved from the same unicellular ancestor billions of years ago. The story of life on Earth is one of incredible divergence and adaptation, but the roots of all living beings are profoundly intertwined. Scientists have theorized various origins for the first unicellular being, but what is clear is that over time, through the mechanisms of evolution, mutation, diversification, and natural selection, this first ancestor gave rise to the multitude of life forms we see today: animals, plants, fungi, and countless others. About 1.6 to 1.5 billion years ago, the eukaryotes began to split into two major lineages: the Archaeplastida, which gave rise to plants, and the Opisthokonts, which led to animals and fungi. It's difficult to imagine how a single-celled organism could eventually give rise to the magnificent diversity of life we observe today, but evolution works over such vast timescales that the results are nothing short of miraculous. To put this in perspective, think of the domestication of dogs. All the different breeds of dogs we see today, from the large and powerful Rottweilers and Huskies to the tiny and delicate Chihuahuas and Pomeranians, all came from the common ancestor, the wolf. The domestication of wolves began around 15,000 to 40,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in the evolutionary timeline. Yet through selective breeding, these vastly different breeds now exist. If such variation can arise in just tens of thousands of years, imagine what can happen over billions of years through the process of natural evolution. It's like comparing tens of thousands of dollars to billions of dollars. The magnitude of purchasing power is incomprehensible. By examining DNA similarities, we can trace our shared evolutionary heritage. Humans share about 98% of their DNA with chimpanzees, about 84% with dogs, 60% with chickens, and, interestingly, about 25% with plants. Plants may seem like distant cousins, but they are part of our evolutionary family, just like any other living being on Earth. They play a fundamental role in the food chain, converting sunlight and nutrients into a form that sustains herbivores, which in turn sustain carnivores. Without them, the web of life would unravel.
Expanding the CONAF to plants.
As we explored how CONAF applied to humans and animals, let's expand that analysis to how it applies to plants. They meet all the biological criteria for life, including the ability to grow, reproduce, respond to their environment, and carry out metabolic processes. Plants have complex life cycles and can communicate and interact with their surroundings in surprisingly sophisticated ways. Despite the vastly different quickness in response, they are unequivocally living beings with the intentionality to live.
Life, survival, and health.
Just like animals, plants have their own intrinsic needs for survival, growth, and health. These needs are crucial for their development, reproduction, and ability to adapt to their environment. In good health, they have vibrant green leaves, strong stems, consistent flowering and fruiting, firm root systems, and strong growth. In bad health, they have wilting leaves with spots or lesions, discoloration or rotting roots, weak stems, stunted growth, poor flower or fruit development, and the presence of pest, mold, or mildew.
Shelter and protection.
Plants need physical space to grow and access to light. Competition for space can affect a plant's access to light and nutrients, influencing its ability to thrive. Additionally, many plants require physical support for growth. Climbing plants, for example, need structures to support their upward growth toward light. Just like animals, plants are susceptible to diseases and predation from pests. They have developed a variety of defense mechanisms, both physical, like thorns and tough leaves, and chemical, such as toxic compounds and attractants for predators of their pests. Temperature affects enzymatic activities and overall metabolic rates in plants. Most plants have a preferred temperature range in which they perform optimally. Extreme cold or heat can inhibit plant enzymes, affecting growth and survival. Similarly, humidity affects transpiration rates and can influence plant hydration and temperature regulation.
Food, water, and nutrients.
Plants require light for photosynthesis, the process by which they convert light energy into chemical energy stored as sugars. This energy fuels nearly all plant activities, from growth to reproduction. The necessity for light influences many aspects of a plant's behavior and morphology, including leaf orientation and stem elongation. Essential for photosynthesis and functioning as a solvent in which biochemical reactions occur, water is also vital for transporting nutrients from the soil to different parts of the plant. Water stress can lead to stunted growth, wilting, and, if severe, plant death. Plants need various minerals and nutrients from the soil to support their metabolic functions. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are among the most crucial nutrients, but plants also require smaller amounts of other minerals like calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Nutrient deficiencies can lead to poor growth, leaf discoloration, reduced fruiting, and less overall vigor. Carbon dioxide is a primary substrate for photosynthesis, and oxygen is necessary for respiration. While plants typically have ample access to air, the balance of gases can be crucial, especially under climate-controlled environments like greenhouses.
Sleep and rest.
Plants don't sleep in the same way animals do, but they do have periods of rest that are crucial for their growth and health. This resting phase largely corresponds to the nighttime or dark periods. Like many organisms, plants have circadian rhythms, internal clocks that regulate their physiological processes over a roughly 24-hour cycle. These rhythms dictate when certain processes, like photosynthesis, respiration, and hormone production occur. During the day, plants actively engage in photosynthesis. At night, photosynthesis ceases because light is unavailable, but respiration continues. This switch is vital because it allows plants to break down the sugars they created during the day to fuel growth processes that occur at night. Some plants exhibit growth spurts during the night. For example, the hormone auxin, which promotes plant growth, is typically more active during dark periods. This is partly why you might notice some plants, like beans or sunflowers, seem to grow significantly overnight. Nighttime is also important for recovery and repair from environmental stressors such as UV radiation, heat, or drought. The absence of light and typically cooler night temperatures can help plants conserve water and energy and repair any photodamage to cells that may have occurred during the day. Many plants close their stomata, small openings on the leaves, at night. This reduces water loss when it's typically cooler, and there's less benefit from keeping them open as there is no light for photosynthesis. This resting state is crucial for maintaining water balance within the plant. While it's not sleep in the human sense, this daily cycle of activity and rest is crucial for plant health and vitality. The night period allows plants to process and store the energy they've gathered during the day, manage their water and nutrient use efficiently, and prepare for another day of growth and energy production.
Safety and security.
Like animals, plants require a form of safety and security, although the nature of these needs differs significantly. Physical protection is crucial for plants, as they need to be shielded from grazing herbivores, trampling, and other forms of mechanical damage. Structural adaptations such as thick bark, spines, and thorns help protect them from such physical threats and herbivory. Additionally, plants depend on stable environmental conditions. Extremes in temperature, abrupt weather changes, or inadequate sunlight can severely stress them, impacting their growth and reproductive capabilities. Biological threats also pose significant risks, with pests, pathogens, and competitive species being major concerns. Plants have evolved a variety of chemical defenses to deter pests and inhibit the growth of harmful microorganisms. Equally important is their access to essential resources like water and nutrients, which can be jeopardized by environmental challenges such as drought or soil erosion. Plants have adapted diverse root systems to cope with these variations in resource availability. Furthermore, many plants rely on symbiotic relationships with other organisms to survive. These relationships enhance their nutrient uptake and reproductive success, making the stability of these interactions vital for their survival.
Affirmation.
Plants do not require emotional affirmation or connections in the way animals do. However, they do engage in complex interactions and form crucial connections within their ecosystems that are vital for their survival and reproduction. Symbiotic relationships are particularly important, such as those with mycorrhizal fungi, which enhance nutrient uptake in exchange for carbohydrates from photosynthesis, and with various pollinators that facilitate their reproductive processes. Plants also have ways to communicate indirectly. For example, when under pest attack, some can emit volatile organic compounds that neighboring plants detect, prompting them to activate their own defensive measures preemptively. Furthermore, the integration of plants into their ecological communities supports not only individual species, but also the broader environmental health. Forest trees, for instance, create a moderating canopy that supports a diverse undergrowth, enhancing the ecosystem's overall nutrient cycling and stability. Thus, while appearing stoic, plants are deeply embedded in a network of ecological interactions that are essential for their growth, defense, and reproduction.
Sex drive and reproduction.
Like animals, plants engage in reproduction, including sexual reproduction, although their methods are distinctly adapted to their biological needs. Flowering plants, or angiosperms, reproduce sexually through pollination, where pollen from the male parts of a flower, stamens, is transferred to the female part, stigma, of the same or another flower. This leads to fertilization and the development of seeds within fruits. Gymnosperms, such as pine trees, also reproduce sexually by releasing pollen from male cones, which is carried by wind to female cones where seeds then develop. Pollination can be facilitated by various means. Many plants rely on biological pollinators like bees, birds, and bats, which visit flowers for nectar and simultaneously transfer pollen. Others depend on abiotic elements such as wind or water to carry pollen to receptive female structures, a strategy common among grasses and many trees. In addition to sexual reproduction, many plants also reproduce asexually, a method known as vegetative reproduction. This includes the growth of new plants from runners, as seen in strawberries, or through the division of bulbs like onions and garlic. Plants like bamboo produce new individuals from underground stems known as rhizomes, while potatoes use tubers for the same purpose. Cuttings represent another asexual method where new plants grow from severed pieces of the parent plant, often used in horticulture for species that are challenging to propagate from seeds. These diverse reproductive strategies allow plants to thrive across various environments and ensure their proliferation across generations.
Competence.
Plants have evolved a suite of adaptive strategies that function similarly to developing competences for survival within their environmental niches. They optimize photosynthesis through mechanisms like heliotropism, where they track the sun across the sky to maximize light capture. In terms of water management, different species exhibit remarkable adaptations. Desert plants, such as cacti, minimize water loss with thick cuticles and reduced leaf surfaces, whereas plants like willows develop extensive root systems to efficiently absorb water from moist soil. Nutrient uptake is another area of adaptation. Legumes, for example, form symbiotic relationships with nitrogen-fixing bacteria to thrive in nutrient-poor soils. Defensive mechanisms are also crucial. Plants protect themselves from herbivores and pathogens through physical barriers like thorns and through the production of chemical compounds that are toxic or repellent. Moreover, some plants can signal to their neighbors about threats via chemical emissions, enhancing communal defenses. Seasonal adjustments also showcase plant adaptability. Deciduous trees, for instance, shed their leaves to conserve resources during harsh seasons, and plants like bulbs enter dormancy, re-emerging when favorable conditions return. These varied adaptations collectively underscore how plants have evolved complex and effective responses to their environments, ensuring survival, growth, and reproduction despite the challenges they face.
Superiority.
Like animals, plants engage in vital competition for essential resources such as light, water, nutrients, and space, which are crucial for their survival, growth, and reproduction. In the fierce battle for light, which is indispensable for photosynthesis, taller trees in a forest may dominate smaller plants by spreading their canopies wide and overshadowing them. Below ground, the competition continues as plants develop extensive root systems that enable them to absorb more water and nutrients than their neighbors. Some plants may even resort to allelopathy, production of biochemicals that influence the growth, survival, reproduction, or behavior of other organisms, to reduce competition for soil resources. Reproductive success is another arena where plants strive to outcompete their peers. This is achieved through various strategies such as producing a high volume of seeds, utilizing mechanisms for widespread seed dispersal, or timing their blooming periods to maximize pollinator attention without competition from other species. Moreover, physical growth and space occupation are critical, with fast-growing species quickly colonizing areas to outpace slower growers, thereby securing more resources for themselves. Climbing plants exemplify a unique strategy by using other plants as supports to reach better light conditions, even if it sometimes harms the host.
Stimulation.
Plants do not require mental stimulation, nor do they experience states like boredom as animals do. However, they are highly responsive to their physical environment, equipped with sophisticated mechanisms to react to various stimuli that are crucial for their survival and growth. For example, plants are attuned to light, capable of detecting its intensity, duration, and wavelength, which influences key processes such as photosynthesis and growth direction, known as phototropism, where plants grow toward light sources to optimize energy capture. They also exhibit sensitivities to water and nutrients through hydrotropism and chemotropism, respectively, allowing roots to grow toward water sources and nutrient-rich areas. Additionally, plants respond to gravity through gravitropism, guiding their roots to grow downward and stems to grow upward. Mechanical stimuli are also detected. This is evident in climbing plants that exhibit thigmotropism, growing toward and around objects they touch for support. Moreover, Plants can release chemical signals in response to stress or damage, such as when under attack by herbivores, triggering chemical defenses that can deter attackers or attract their predators. These complex interactions demonstrate plants' intricate ways of sensing and adapting to their environment, ensuring their continued growth and reproduction, highlighting their dynamic nature despite the absence of mental processes.
Meaning and purpose.
From a biological standpoint, the fundamental purpose of life for plants, much like animals, is to survive and reproduce. This is underpinned by evolutionary principles and natural selection, which influence all living organisms' behaviors and adaptations. Plants focus on survival by efficiently using resources such as light, water, and nutrients, and by defending against threats like predators, diseases, and adverse environmental conditions. Reproduction is equally crucial, ensuring the continuation of a species through generations. Plants employ various reproductive strategies to maximize their reproductive success. This is evident in the way many flowers have evolved to attract specific pollinators with their unique colors, shapes, and scents. Additionally, plants have developed multiple methods for seed dispersal, utilizing mechanisms that involve wind, water, or animal carriers. Some seeds designed with hooks or burrs cling to animal fur, while others are encased in fruits that animals consume, later excreting the seeds at considerable distances from the original plant.
Relationships between plants and animals.
When viewed as equal participants in the ecological struggle, plants demonstrate sophisticated survival strategies, often rivaling those of animals. Though their reactions may be slower, plants engage in direct and indirect competition for resources and survival. For instance, in response to herbivores, plants can produce toxins or reduce digestibility, a tailored defense mechanism aimed at deterring specific attackers. This isn't just a blanket chemical response, but a strategic reaction to the type of herbivore, indicating a deeper complexity in their behavior. Plants also engage in what could be considered chemical warfare. They produce a wide array of compounds that deter herbivores, inhibit the growth of competitors, and even manipulate predators of their attackers. For example, some plants release volatile organic compounds when harmed, attracting predators that feed on the herbivores, essentially forming defensive alliances. In nutrient-poor environments, Venus flytrap has evolved to trap and digest insects, showcasing its adaptability and strategic manipulation of its surroundings. It only closes when trichomes are triggered multiple times, ensuring the insect's viability before expending energy to digest it. Furthermore, the concept of the wood wide web, a communication system through underground fungal networks, highlights a plant's ability to share information with others in its ecosystem. Whether warning about threats or managing resources, this network suggests a communal strategy that mirrors animal communication.
The consciousness of plants.
Plants are undeniably living beings, but the question of whether they have consciousness is complex. Our understanding of consciousness has been shaped and limited by the human experience. Quick reactions, intricate language, art, science, and philosophy, which sets a certain standard for what we recognize as conscious behavior. We easily recognize the struggle for life in animals because of their fast responses to stimuli, but plants seem much more passive, appearing oblivious to harm. However, plants are far from passive. They do respond to their environment, albeit in ways that are slower and less perceptible to us. Consciousness, though enigmatic, is often linked to the act of living. Some scientific and philosophical discussions raise the possibility that plants may possess a form of consciousness, albeit vastly different from that of animals. One of the most compelling arguments for plant consciousness is the way they perceive and react to their surroundings. Plants can sense light, gravity, water, and chemical signals, and they modify their growth and behavior based on these stimuli. For example, plants bend toward light sources, phototropism, and grow their roots in response to gravity, gravitropism. These reactions suggest that plants aren't merely acting as mechanical organisms but are engaged in active problem solving to optimize their survival. Further supporting this notion is how plants communicate. When threatened by insects or environmental stress, some plants release chemical signals to warn nearby plants, triggering defensive responses such as releasing toxins or toughening their leaves. This form of communal awareness demonstrates a higher level of interaction than mere reflexes. Some studies even show that plants can remember past stressors, adjusting their future responses accordingly. This adaptive learning hints at a form of plant memory, a trait typically associated with conscious beings. Proponents of plant consciousness argue that while plants may not experience the world as animals do, with subjective emotions or thoughts, their slow, integrative form of awareness is geared toward long-term survival and reproduction. Plants might embody a different kind of consciousness, one rooted in a decentralized intelligence distributed throughout their bodies, as opposed to the brain-centric consciousness found in animals. Since I refer to consciousness as intentionality, plants undeniably possess the intention to survive and reproduce, which makes them conscious. The spectrum of consciousness, once again, expands to encompass life forms beyond our anthropocentric perspective. By considering this alternative form of consciousness, we expand our appreciation for the diversity of life on Earth. Just as we've recognized that intelligence and consciousness can take many forms among animals, the acknowledgement that plants possess their own kind of awareness forces us to rethink what it means to be conscious and alive. The web of life grows even more intricate when we acknowledge that even beings we once thought of as silent and passive may have their own ways of experiencing the world.
The literal foundation of physical life.
In addition to the question of their consciousness, the vibrant mosaic ecosystems on Earth is sustained largely by the diversity and vitality of its plant life. Plants form the foundational backbone of nearly all terrestrial ecosystems and play critical roles in maintaining the balance and health of the environment, thus supporting the lives of all animal species, including humans. We'll examine specific issues that showcase the necessity of plants for our survival.
Primary producers and the basis of food webs.
Plants are autotrophs, meaning they produce their own food using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide in a process called photosynthesis. This ability places them at the base of the ecological food pyramid, making them primary producers. Every bit of energy that animals consume traces back to plants either directly, by herbivores, or indirectly, as carnivores eat herbivores. This fundamental role as energy providers makes plants critical for the survival of all wildlife, underpinning food chains from the lush rainforests to arid deserts.
Oxygen production and carbon sequestration.
Through photosynthesis, plants release oxygen as a byproduct, which is essential for the respiration of almost all living organisms. The vast forests and oceanic algae are particularly crucial in this regard, contributing significantly to the atmospheric oxygen we breathe. Simultaneously, plants absorb carbon dioxide, a prominent greenhouse gas, helping to mitigate climate change. This carbon sequestration not only reduces the amount of harmful carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, but also plays a critical role in the global carbon cycle, thus stabilizing climate patterns and temperatures that support diverse life forms.
Habitat formation and biodiversity support.
Plants are not just producers, but also engineers of their environments. They create habitats for numerous species, providing shelter and breeding grounds. Forests, grasslands, and wetlands are examples of ecosystems primarily constructed by plants, each supporting complex webs of life. These ecosystems are reservoirs of biodiversity. Plants themselves offer vast genetic diversity, which is key to ecosystem resilience against environmental stressors and changes.
Soil formation and preservation.
Plants are instrumental in soil formation and conservation. Their roots help bind the soil, reducing erosion by wind and water. Decaying plant matter replenishes soil nutrients, maintaining its fertility. This cycle of growth and decay sustains the soil's ability to support plant life, which in turn supports higher trophic levels.
Water cycle regulation. Plants are integral to the regulation of the water cycle, a critical ecological process that impacts the climate and availability of fresh water globally. Through the process of transpiration, plants release vast amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere. During photosynthesis, plants open tiny pores on their leaves, known as stomata, to absorb carbon dioxide. This necessary exchange also results in water vapor escaping from the leaves into the air. The water vapor contributes to local humidity and eventually condenses to form clouds, which can lead to precipitation. This precipitation is vital for replenishing water sources like rivers, lakes, and aquifers, and it supports various terrestrial and aquatic life forms. The role of plants in this cycle is particularly crucial in maintaining climatic balance and ensuring water availability. For instance, large forested areas, such as the Amazon rainforest, are known as rain generators because they can influence regional and even global weather patterns through their transpiration. This not only supports the rich biodiversity within these forests, but also benefits agricultural regions that may be hundreds of miles away by contributing to the rainfall they receive. Medicinal resources. Beyond ecological contributions, plants are invaluable for their medicinal properties. A significant proportion of modern medicines are derived directly or indirectly from plants. This pharmacological use of plants continues to be a cornerstone of both traditional and modern medicine, highlighting another dimension of how plant life supports human survival and well-being. The bridge of fungi.
The divide between animals and plants has an intriguing intermediary, fungi. Although they visually resemble plants, fungi share more biological traits with animals. Both fungi and animals are part of the supergroup Opisthokonta, which branched off from the plant lineage approximately 1.5 billion years ago. Unlike plants, which are autotrophs and create their own nutrients through photosynthesis, fungi, like animals, are heterotrophs. This means they obtain their nutrients by absorbing dissolved organic matter, often breaking it down externally through digestive enzymes. Fungi play a crucial ecological role by recycling nutrients and breaking down organic material, acting as nature's decomposers. They are indispensable in maintaining the nutrient cycle that supports ecosystems. One of the most fascinating symbiotic relationships fungi form is with plants through mycorrhizal networks. These underground fungal networks connect with plant roots, expanding the reach of the plant's root system and enhancing nutrient uptake, while the plant, in turn, provides carbohydrates to the fungi. With animals, fungi offer incredible biological benefits, including antibiotics like penicillin, which have saved countless human lives. On a deeper level, the mycelium network of fungi can transmit electrical signals in response to environmental stimuli, forming a kind of neural-like communication system. It's almost as if fungi operate with their neural and digestive systems exposed to the outside world, unlike animals, whose systems are encased within their bodies. From this perspective, fungi can be seen as the Earth's internal systems, digesting, transmitting, and regulating the environment's health, while plants serve as the planet's lungs and capture energy from the sun. Perhaps most fascinating are the psychoactive compounds produced by some fungi, notably psilocybin. This substance, known to catalyze transcendental experiences in consciousness, seems to bridge the gap between the neural network of fungi and the expansion of human consciousness. It's compelling to consider how the neural network of Mother Earth, through fungi, might influence human awareness, leading some to a profound realization of the interconnectedness of all life.
Expanding consciousness to the plants and the earth.
Plants, though operating at a different pace than humans, are integral to the cycle of life. Their ability to grow, adapt, and survive reflects a level of consciousness, even if it differs from our own. Recognizing this shared continuum of consciousness reshapes our view of the environment, revealing it not as a resource to be exploited, but as an extension of ourselves. Matter and energy flow through both plants and humans in an endless cycle, underscoring our interdependence. Plants form the foundation of our ecosystem, converting sunlight into nourishment, feeding herbivores, and eventually, all life. By expanding our consciousness to include plants, we begin to see them not as mere commodities but as companions on the journey of life. Our health mirrors the health of the environment. Polluting the soil or water is not just an environmental crisis, but an act of self-harm. The well-being of the planet is tied to our own survival, making it imperative to move beyond a human-centered perspective. The earth, forests, oceans, and plants are not separate from us, but vital extensions of our life force. When we poison or destroy these ecosystems, we disrupt the flow of energy that sustains all beings. To embrace higher consciousness, we must recognize that caring for the planet is caring for ourselves. At the very least, this expanded awareness can arise from self-preservation. Earth's health directly impacts our own. The air, water, and nutrients we depend on cycle through the earth, constantly renewing and passing through our bodies. Whatever we release into the environment, whether toxins or nourishment, ultimately returns to us. The ocean of humanity is just one portion of the vast ocean of life. A component of the CONAF is the need for superiority, which feeds into ego, pride, and arrogance. Among humans, individuals and groups constantly jostle for superiority. In the 17th century, Galileo was forced to recant his view that the Earth orbits the Sun under threat of torture, because this challenged the notion that our home planet was the center of the universe. Fast forward to 2025, humanity continues to grapple with the same delusions of superiority. Despite overwhelming genetic, anatomical, psychological, emotional, and behavioral evidence, the truth that other sentient beings possess consciousness remains largely unacknowledged. This rejection of self-evident truths arises from an entrenched need to preserve a sense of human uniqueness. In science, the caution against anthropomorphic interpretations reflects this bias. Ironically, by refusing to recognize consciousness in other beings, we fall prey to the very anthropocentric delusion we seek to avoid. But life, and the struggle for life, extends far beyond us. I propose that life requires not just existence, but intentionality, a drive to live. And that drive is consciousness, present on a spectrum, not just in humans, but in all living beings. This expanded understanding of consciousness compels us to live in harmony with the earth. We cannot thrive while the environment deteriorates, nor can we expect peace while exploiting nature. True harmony comes only when our compassion extends beyond humans and animals to encompass the land, water, and air. By acknowledging the impact humanity has had on Earth, we not only protect ourselves, but also create a future where all life can flourish.
Examining human-environment relationships. On a more positive note, humans also engage in conservation efforts like reforestation, wildlife protection, and sustainable agriculture to restore balance and protect the planet's ecosystems. Additionally, spiritual and cultural practices often foster a deeper connection with nature, encouraging reverence and respect for the environment. This complex web of interactions shapes both the health of the planet and the quality of human life, reflecting our evolving relationship with the natural world. Let's explore various significant interactions between humans and the environment. Human settlements.
To secure our living spaces, the relentless expansion of cities, highways, and settlements has drastic repercussions on natural habitats, often irreversibly altering ecosystems and decimating wildlife populations. These developments typically require the destruction of forests, wetlands, and other vital environments that house countless species, leading to a sharp decline in biodiversity. When we clear land for construction, we not only obliterate the physical habitats of plants and animals, but also fragment the landscape, leaving behind isolated patches of nature. This fragmentation disrupts species' ability to hunt, mate, and migrate, slowly pushing populations toward extinction. Highways in particular create deadly barriers for wildlife, as animals attempting to cross roads face a high risk of vehicle collisions. These roads fragment habitats, isolating populations and preventing the genetic diversity essential for long-term survival. Species that require large home ranges, such as bears and birds, are especially vulnerable. They cannot traverse fragmented habitats, and many meet tragic ends as roadkill. Over time, roads and other urban infrastructure reduce the ability of ecosystems to regenerate, locking entire regions into a downward spiral of ecological degradation. As humans expand further into previously untouched environments, we inevitably encroach upon the living spaces of animals, often forcing them into conflict with human populations. Wildlife, displaced from their natural homes, might turn to human settlements for food, creating competition that generally results in the animal's removal or extermination. This ongoing tension between humans and animals is symptomatic of a deeper issue. Our unchecked expansion is displacing more life than we realize. The Earth itself is struggling to cope with the relentless demands we place upon it, and in damaging it, we inevitably harm ourselves, as the environment's health is intrinsically linked to our own well-being.
Deforestation. Deforestation is one of the most devastating environmental issues humanity faces today, and it is largely driven by agriculture, logging, and urban development. These activities strip the planet of its forest cover, altering ecosystems and leading to a significant reduction in biodiversity. The Amazon rainforest, often referred to as the lungs of the earth, serves as a prime example of the far-reaching consequences of this destructive practice. It's not just about the trees or local wildlife. This forest plays an essential role in regulating global carbon cycles and mitigating climate change. When trees are felled, the capacity to absorb carbon dioxide is lost, and the carbon stored in these trees is released back into the atmosphere, accelerating global warming. The economic interests behind deforestation, such as cattle ranching and soybean production, are short-sighted. The Amazon isn't just a resource to be exploited, it's a vital component of the Earth's respiratory and carbon sequestration systems. And what happens to the rainforest doesn't stay in the rainforest. The ripple effects are global, affecting weather patterns, carbon cycles, and the overall health of ecosystems around the world. Similarly, in Southeast Asia, particularly in countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, vast swaths of rainforest are cleared for palm oil plantations, a product ubiquitous in processed foods, cosmetics, and household items. This has led to habitat destruction, pushing critically endangered species like orangutans, tigers, and rhinoceroses closer to extinction. Forests don't just support biodiversity, they regulate local water cycles. By absorbing rainfall and releasing water vapor, they maintain the balance of precipitation that feeds rivers, lakes, and ecosystems. When these forests are destroyed, the resulting climate shifts can be catastrophic, leading to drier conditions, worsening droughts, and overall ecological collapse. Pollution. Human activity has a profound impact on the environment, with environmental pollution being one of the most significant and visible consequences. The growth of industries, expansion of urban areas, intensification of agriculture, and increasing reliance on fossil fuels have all contributed to widespread environmental degradation. Here follows an overview at various types of pollution resulting from human activities and their consequences. Air pollution. Industrial activities, the burning of fossil fuels for energy, and vehicular emissions are significant contributors to air pollution, releasing harmful pollutants into the atmosphere. These pollutants, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, and particulate matter, create smog, which impacts air quality and poses severe health risks to both humans and animals. The immediate effect of poor air quality includes respiratory issues, cardiovascular diseases, and premature deaths, while ecosystems also suffer from the toxic air pollutants. Additionally, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides lead to the formation of acid rain. This phenomenon changes the pH levels of water bodies and soils, which, in turn, disrupts aquatic ecosystems and impairs the health of forests. Acid rain can leach essential nutrients from the soil, further degrading the quality of plant life, which cascades into broader biodiversity loss. One of the most pressing concerns is the release of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide and methane. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere, contributing to global warming. As global temperatures rise, we are seeing more frequent and severe weather events, altered precipitation patterns, rising sea levels, and disruptions in food production. Climate change, driven by these emissions, is creating challenges for virtually every aspect of life on Earth. It is not just a local issue, but a planetary one, affecting all living beings. Water pollution. Water pollution is a critical consequence of human activities, profoundly affecting ecosystems, aquatic life, and even human populations. Industrial discharges often contain hazardous chemicals, heavy metals, and toxic substances that flow into rivers, lakes, and oceans, degrading the quality of water. Untreated sewage introduces pathogens and organic waste into water bodies, posing significant health risks to both humans and wildlife. Agricultural runoff, which includes pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, is one of the leading causes of water pollution. When rain washes these chemicals into nearby water sources, it leads to nutrient pollution. This phenomenon, especially with fertilizers containing nitrogen and phosphorus, causes eutrophication, a process where excess nutrients spur the growth of algae. Algal blooms block sunlight, consume oxygen, and create dead zones in the water, leading to the death of marine life due to oxygen depletion. Oil spills are another devastating form of pollution, especially in oceans. Spills not only suffocate marine organisms, but also destroy habitats such as coral reefs and mangroves, which are critical to biodiversity. The long-term effects of oil pollution linger for decades, severely impairing the ecosystem's ability to recover.
Plastic pollution. Plastic, especially in the form of microplastics, has become a serious threat to life on Earth. Plastics don't break down easily, and as they accumulate, they start to infiltrate every corner of the environment: land, water, and even the air we breathe. As larger plastic items slowly break into smaller fragments, they form microplastics, tiny particles that are now widespread. The impact of this pollution is devastating, not just for the environment, but for other animals and human health as well. In our oceans, plastic pollution is overwhelming marine life. Fish, seabirds, and even large mammals mistake these plastic pieces for food, which often leads to choking, malnutrition, or death. What's worse is that microplastics enter the food chain at the very bottom, starting with plankton, the foundation of the marine ecosystem. As small creatures ingest these particles, they pass them up the food chain. So by the time we get to larger species, and even us as humans, these toxins have concentrated in tissues. Plastics also release harmful chemicals like BPA and phthalates, disrupting the hormonal systems of many species. It's not just aquatic life that's affected. On land, animals can get trapped in plastic waste, leading to injury or death. Meanwhile, microplastics are seeping into our soil, infiltrating the very ground we depend on to grow food. And as they work their way into our water sources, it's only a matter of time before they reach us, if they haven't already. The scariest part is that we're just beginning to understand what this means for human health. Microplastics have been found in our drinking water, our food, and even in the air. They've been detected in human tissues, raising alarm bells about what happens when we've been exposed to these materials long term. Some studies suggest microplastics might cause inflammation or even cellular damage, and the chemicals they release could mess with our hormones and reproductive systems. The fact that we're finding them in human bloodstream should be a wake-up call. In short, plastics are everywhere, and the damage they're doing isn't just a future problem. It's happening right now. The consequences stretch across ecosystems and species.
Soil pollution.
Soil pollution is a pressing issue that stems from various human activities, such as improper disposal of industrial waste, the heavy use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture, and accidental spills of hazardous materials. These pollutants, including heavy metals like lead and mercury, hydrocarbons, and synthetic chemicals, seep into the soil, compromising its health and fertility. Over time, contaminated soil loses its ability to support plant life effectively, leading to reduced crop yields and the degradation of entire ecosystems. Heavy metals, for instance, accumulate in plants and animals through the food chain, ultimately affecting human health when these foods are consumed. Direct contact with contaminated soil also poses risks, especially for communities living near industrial or agricultural sites where exposure can lead to skin irritations, respiratory issues, and in severe cases, long-term diseases like cancer. Moreover, soil that is unable to retain essential nutrients and water further exacerbates the effects of drought and climate change, leading to more environmental instability. The cascading consequences of soil pollution not only threaten food security, but also the delicate balance of ecosystems. Efforts to mitigate soil pollution must focus on stricter regulations for waste disposal, reducing the use of harmful agricultural chemicals, and promoting sustainable land management practices.
Noise pollution.
Noise pollution, often overlooked, is another environmental impact of human activity. Urbanization, transport networks, construction activities, and industrial operations contribute to noise pollution. It can cause hearing loss, stress, and high blood pressure among humans and disrupts the behavior and communication of wildlife, affecting their reproduction and survival rates.
Light pollution.
Light pollution, resulting from excessive or misdirected artificial light, profoundly impacts both urban and remote ecosystems. It disrupts the natural rhythms of many species, including nocturnal wildlife, which rely on darkness for their activities. Light pollution also affects plant photoperiods, the natural cycles of light and dark that regulate plant behaviors like flowering and seed germination.
Global warming. The impact of human activity on global warming is a critical area of study in environmental science. Scientific consensus holds that human actions, particularly those leading to greenhouse gas emissions, are the primary drivers of the accelerated warming observed on Earth over the past century. This warming is causing widespread changes to the planet's climate systems, with significant implications for all forms of life. Greenhouse gas emissions. The primary human activity contributing to global warming is the emission of greenhouse gases. These gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, creating what is commonly known as the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is the most significant greenhouse gas, released primarily through burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, in power generation, transportation, and industrial processes. Deforestation also contributes to rising CO2 levels, as trees that once stored carbon are cut down and decay or are burned, releasing carbon back into the atmosphere. Methane is a potent GHG with a much higher heat-trapping ability per molecule than CO2, although it stays in the atmosphere for a shorter time. Significant sources include livestock, through enteric fermentation, landfills, the oil and gas industry, and rice paddies. Nitrous oxide is mainly produced by agricultural and industrial activities, as well as combustion of fossil fuels and biomass. Climate feedback mechanisms. As global temperatures rise, Earth's natural systems respond in complex ways, creating feedback loops that can either accelerate or slow down the warming process. One prominent feedback loop is the ice albedo effect. Ice and snow have a high albedo, meaning they reflect a significant portion of the sun's rays back into space. As global temperatures rise, ice and snow begin to melt, exposing darker surfaces like ocean water or land, which absorb more heat. This increase in absorbed heat accelerates further ice melt, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that amplifies warming. This is especially pronounced in the Arctic, where sea ice loss has contributed to noticeable regional warming, disrupting ecosystems and weather patterns far beyond the poles. Another key mechanism is the water vapor feedback. As temperatures rise, more water evaporates into the atmosphere, and since water vapor is itself a potent greenhouse gas, it traps additional heat, exacerbating global warming. This is another self-reinforcing cycle. More warming leads to more evaporation, which in turn causes further warming. These feedback mechanisms illustrate how interconnected Earth's climate systems are, and why even small increases in temperature can lead to disproportionately large impacts. Oceanic changes. The oceans play a vital role in regulating the Earth's climate by absorbing a large portion of the carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere, around 30%. While this helps mitigate the rise in atmospheric CO2 and delays more extreme temperature increases, the absorbed CO2 reacts with seawater, forming carbonic acid. This process leads to ocean acidification, which reduces the pH of the water and disrupts marine ecosystems. Organisms like corals, mollusks, and some plankton rely on calcium carbonate to build their shells and skeletons. The acidification of oceans decreases the availability of carbonate ions, a critical component in forming calcium carbonate, making it harder for these organisms to grow and maintain their structures. As corals and shellfish struggle to survive, entire marine ecosystems face collapse since they form the backbone of oceanic biodiversity. Coral reefs, for instance, provide habitats for around 25% of all marine species, making their loss catastrophic for marine life. Additionally, the ocean absorbs around 90% of the excess heat generated by global warming, which directly affects sea temperatures and currents. This heat absorption can disrupt major ocean currents like the Gulf Stream, which has profound impacts on global climate patterns. Warmer oceans fuel more intense tropical storms, leading to hurricanes and typhoons with increased frequency and power, contributing to the devastation of coastal communities and ecosystems. As the oceans continue to bear the brunt of human-induced climate change, the consequences ripple across ecosystems, economies, and human health. Protecting the oceans means not just safeguarding marine life, but also stabilizing the Earth's climate system for future generations. Long-term climate implications.
Global warming's long-term implications are profound, reshaping the Earth's climate, ecosystems, and societies in ways that are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. One of the most visible consequences is the rising sea levels. This is driven by two primary factors: the melting of glaciers and polar ice caps, and the thermal expansion of seawater as it warms. Coastal communities are already experiencing increased flooding and erosion, and as sea levels continue to rise, millions more will face displacement, loss of homes, and the destruction of vital ecosystems like mangroves and wetlands. More extreme weather events are becoming another hallmark of global warming. Hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones are intensifying as warmer ocean temperatures provide more energy for these storms, resulting in stronger winds, heavier rainfall, and more destruction. At the same time, droughts are becoming more severe and prolonged, leading to water shortages, crop failures, and heightened risks of wildfires. These weather patterns disrupt food production, strain resources, and amplify human conflicts as communities compete for dwindling resources. In terms of biodiversity, rising temperatures push species to migrate to cooler regions, whether by moving to higher altitudes or migrating northward. This migration causes disruptions in existing ecosystems, where species are intricately linked to each other and their environment. As new species arrive, they may outcompete local ones, leading to population declines or even extinctions. For those species that cannot migrate, like many plants or animals dependent on specific habitats, extinction becomes a likely fate. Coral reefs, for instance, are among the first ecosystems showing dramatic changes due to warming waters and ocean acidification, with mass coral bleaching events threatening to eliminate these vibrant underwater communities that serve as nurseries for marine life. The cascading effects of these environmental shifts also reverberate through human systems, from agriculture to infrastructure. In a world where entire ecosystems are shifting and weather becomes more erratic, our efforts to adapt must be rapid, creative, and comprehensive if we are to minimize the devastating impacts of these changes on future generations.
Applying true mindfulness.
Many of the topics we've discussed are painful to think about. As we expand our consciousness and awareness, it's essential to confront and understand reality for what it is, no matter how challenging. We can't hide from reality or choose to remain ignorant, even if avoidance cradles us in a clueless bliss. What is the goal of life? From my perspective, there are two competing narratives. The basic goal is to obtain happiness, while the spiritual goal is to seek liberation or salvation. It's natural and expected for people to want happiness. Within the sphere of mental well-being and the self-help market, countless resources cater to this singular purpose. Even my first book, The Ocean Within, Understanding Human Nature to Achieve Mental Well-Being, was intentionally worded and designed for that purpose because it's the lowest common denominator to reach a wider audience. I also strongly believe that a person is more prepared to expand their consciousness once their own CONAF is satisfied. Otherwise, they will struggle with basic needs, and their consciousness naturally focuses on themselves first. Completing the CONAF is just the beginning, a foundational step toward the lifelong endeavor of expanding consciousness. However, expanding consciousness inherently implies expanding awareness. Even if our little circle is a paradise, we eventually breach our comfort zone and gaze out into the world. As the story goes, Prince Siddhartha was intentionally confined within the luxury of the palace walls, but his curiosity led him to see beyond and ultimately pierce the nature of reality. Being aware of both the good and the bad can be exciting and heartbreaking. Since we all live in this physical reality, shouldn't we attempt to discover the fundamental rules and structure? To me, pursuing only happiness in this material world is short-sighted, but understandable. This physical realm has a lot to offer and many temptations to experience, especially if we're fortunate to be in a privileged position, born with good health, high intellect, a supportive family, or membership in a dominant group or species. The privileged can easily rationalize away the suffering hidden behind closed doors or unseen beneath our feet. That's just the way things are, or it is what it is. Don't look at them, lest they disrupt our peace and joy. Let's focus solely on the positivity of life and repeat the mantra that everything is fine and everyone is good. Let the world keep on spinning as we reap the benefit from others' suffering. To grasp reality, we must practice mindfulness, being fully aware of ourselves, others, and the world. Mindfulness is the foundation for genuine observation, sensation, understanding, growth, control, and mastery. It allows us to be fully present in reality. It's also the cornerstone of all psychotherapy modalities, from dialectical behavior therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, insight-oriented therapy, to acceptance and commitment therapies and countless others. What intrigues me is that while mindfulness is deeply rooted in Eastern traditions, it wasn't systematized into official psychotherapeutic techniques in the East like it has been in the West. You'd think that Eastern cultures, steeped in the concept of mindfulness, would naturally be more psychologically aware and comfortable with mental health. Yet, that's not the case. The need to save face, maintain appearances, and preserve the illusion of superficial superiority often takes precedence over understanding, honesty, and truth. When we sacrifice truth for comfort, we miss out on real understanding and growth. In the West, the mystical aspects of mindfulness, through yoga and meditation, are often adopted for mental well-being. The aim is to be present, aware, and focused on the immediate surroundings, to see, hear, and feel what's in front of us. For many in the First World, this exercise serves as a much-needed reminder of their blessings and privileges. If only they could let go of past regrets and future anxieties, they could stay grounded in the beauty of the present blessed moment, the now. But I wonder, can this same advice be offered to someone living in the midst of horror, to a mother huddling beneath a table with her children as bombs fall around her, or to a father desperate to stave off starvation for his family?
Expansion of mindfulness.
I strongly believe this practice of mindfulness that focuses only on the present moment and present surroundings, while important and crucial to learn, is incomplete. Mindfulness is the awareness of reality, not only of things close to us, but also of situations far away. Because we all are interconnected, we must seek to understand reality through space and time. When we sit down for dinner, do we have some idea about who was involved and how it happened? How can we achieve wisdom without knowledge and awareness? How can we nurture kindness when we're oblivious to suffering? How can we develop strength when we shy from discomfort?
The oceans we create.
Humanity is an ocean, and our impact on other beings creates its own ocean. I love sitting on the beach and gazing out at the vast ocean, seeing the waves wash in and out. Especially when there's a full moon, the mixture of solitude, serenity, and vague darkness imbues an eerie beauty. A whole ocean of water represents the breadth and depth of humanity. However, it's also a whole ocean of water representing the tears living beings have shed through space and time. Do people not cry? Do animals not cry? An ocean of tears stands as a testament to our collective pain and suffering. Much of it stems from our collective actions. In certain conditions, the setting sun casts a reddish hue over the sky and water. The ocean, then, in its crimson beauty, can also be one of blood for all that humanity has shed against one another, and the ongoing slaughter of animals. An entire ocean of blood stretches beyond the distance. While the waves wail to and fro near the beach, the water's surface at the horizon is one of calmness and serenity. Imagine the practice of walking meditation on an ocean of blood. Jesus walked on water. Let us fantasize about the same miracle. Every step is slow and deliberate. Feel the moment of contact between the soles of our feet and the water, triggering a ripple that expands across the surface. That expanding ripple is the expansion of our consciousness and compassion, courageously breathing in the pain and suffering. What's missing is the smell of blood, the congealing viscosity, the guttural screams, and the cries of living beings begging for mercy. This is the expansion of true mindfulness, transcending the restricted limitation of the present space and time with the self-serving intent to feel better.
Walking meditation.
Many people practice walking meditation in beautiful gardens or peaceful environments, focusing solely on the present moment. In addition to that foundational practice, they can also expand their mindfulness with each step, rippling through space and time to capture the joy and suffering of the entire world. When we combine compassion with a piercing gaze into the truth of physical reality and the damage caused by humanity, true compassion becomes a source of pain. No matter how blessed and fortunate we are, many others are suffering. Every second of every day. While I can accept the horrors caused by nature, I can't accept the horrors caused by humanity because we have a choice, and we pride ourselves on grasping free will. I still believe in the goodness of humanity. I still yearn for a humanity that strives to minimize suffering while still savoring the beauty of physical existence. To hold true compassion while deeply acknowledging the sufferings that exist will naturally result in our own suffering. To feel for the suffering of others, to commiserate with them, and to encapsulate their well-being into our expanding awareness and compassion will hurt us. What is the goal of life? If it's to pursue our own happiness, then we should shut our eyes, cover our ears, and guard our hearts. Let's live only in the present moment and the present reality. Shrink our awareness and constrict our consciousness. However, if the goal is transcendence, liberation, and salvation, we must open our hearts to feel the pain. We must bear witness when others instinctively turn away.